2A, appointment of building principal. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Childersburg Central School District hereby approves the appointment of Francisco Pelaire Large, building principal, effective September 7th, 2012, as presented. Looking for a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody? Last chance.
Thank you very much.
We have you now.
You do.
You do, I'm all yours.
Yes. Consent, look for a motion on consent agenda, 6. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm awful sorry. We have a presentation tonight from Wendy Coolbaugh.
I'm Wendy, but I'm going to defer to Dakota Carson.
Well, please, come on up.
So I'm handing out little packets of the mission statement and goals, and there are a few pages in the back that will refer you to terminology on the topic that I'll be speaking of, as well as just belief systems and I'm Dakota, by the way. Anyone curious?
Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you as well.
What is GSA?
Gay Straight Alliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm Dakota, and I'm here to talk about starting a GSA. The mission statement reads, our mission is to create an accepting environment for all people regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity through education, support, social action, and advocacy. We intend to break the silence surrounding these questions through awareness, education, intervention. We will provide both students and staff of our school district with tools to create the change. The Trimsbury GSA welcomes all members of our community. Our goal for our school district's newly founded Gay Straight Alliance is to create a network of safety among our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and straight allied students by having weekly meetings starting on Tuesday, September 18th. Ms. Nelson, Ms. Coolbaugh, and Ms. George requested to meet with myself as well as Kira Pedres, who sadly cannot be with us tonight, to sit down and formulate goals for the group. One of our first goals is to present at a faculty meeting where we will inform the staff on ways to address their own beliefs, learning pertinent terminology, and successful ways to handle any given situation while working with an LGBT youth. Another goal of ours is to have a day commemorating October 20th, Spirit Day, on bringing attention to anti-gay bullying. This day will be held on October 19th at our school because we do not have school on the 20th. On this day, we will promote wearing purple, and we'll hand out purple ribbons with little blurbs to either inform or inspire. Everyone in the group is going to work towards speaking up when hearing negative commentary, as well as establishing a network of students and adults who can be considered as safe zone students. These people can be contacted for comfort and support amongst their peers. In the packet you have received, we've included a few pages from GLSEN, which stands for Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. Safe zone packets, informing you on assessing your own personal belief system and terminology relating to the LGBT community. Do you guys have any questions?
If you are giving handouts, I assume this is high school?
Yes, this is high school.
Is anybody like our principal get to see them first?
Yes, if we were going to give out the little blurbs to inspire or inform, we would allow Mr. King and Ms. McCulley
Okay.
privilege to see what we were writing.
Dakota, how did this, because my daughter Nicole's in Fantastic.
Yes.
And so they, I know, spent a lot of time, they went to that conference over at in Amherst with who is now Miss George now, right? Jane, right? And so there was a lot of that there. So is there just, can you tell me, it seemed like Fantastic was trying to sort of do it. Were you there for a little bit and you feel like this is something you want to do more, or?
I actually was not there for a little bit, but we have spoke about our interactions with Fantastic, and we are very forward to maybe working with Fantastic, and we're hoping that some of their members will come and join our group as well.
So you want to have a separate, because you don't think we can accomplish both those things in the Fantastic? Because I know that's one of their big goals too.
We could accomplish both of those things in Fantastic, but it's also nice to have a group that is for people who are LGBT or allied youth, or sisters or brothers or sons or daughters.
I'm for that, because I sort of think about it like, how many things can people participate in when we, going, numbers are going down and down and down. But I'm absolutely, if the group, reaching your goals means having a separate group, and we sort of, as long as our policies are kosher with that, and John's watching out, we're good to go. That's really well done. Thank you for bringing this to us.
No problem. Are there any further questions?
Just have an offer, and that is that I'm on the New York State School Boards Association, and I'm chair of the diversity committee. I do have a number of webinars run by Ed Darden, who's a lawyer in the field and has worked for NISTA, is now in DC, that I would love to make those available to you.
Okay.
If you would like to hear them.
That'd be very appreciated. That would be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Do we need to approve the news group?
Yes.
Do you need a motion?
You would
So
like to
let's make a
recognize-
motion to establish the GSA
As a-
group here at Trumansburg High School or Central School?
Club?
Club?
As a club, yes, it's a club.
It's a student club? So that's the motion to set this up?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're all set.
We're all set?
All right.
Moving on to consent agenda, 6A through 6F.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Correspondence. All I have is, I believe an art report from Bonadeo that I have not had an opportunity, just handed it to me is all I have. Anyone else at correspondence? Administrators report. Start with Mr. Mike.
Well, I believe the opening of school went very well from all reports. We've been busy because we had to get Cisco hired up, and we're in the middle of the APPR negotiations again, scheduled a lot there, and we just need to get going with the school year. That's pretty much it right now. I think some of the other things I talked about will come on with the SECA. So that's it from me.
I am looking forward to getting the results from our audit. We'll have that prior to September 24th, and at that time it will be shared with the Board of Education. We'll have a meeting. I feel like this year it went much more smoothly than last year, even though I came in at the tail end of it last year. The communication has very much improved, and the Bonadeo group is really there and available to us to answer any questions that we have. And they've been very helpful in some of the accounting procedures and working with our treasurer. I also have...
So hold on, Kim. So that's, Kimberly, that's audit of last year's finances?
Correct, 11-12.
11-12.
That's right.
And how much, when did, so you came in at the tail end of it?
Correct.
So Gary, we can blame Gary for some of it. But we
Came
did
in-
really good, and we're not gonna have to worry.
Came in at the tail end of it, and then if you recall, I had some preferences about how I wanted some
Right.
things stated as far as capital reserves
Right,
separated from
right,
vehicle and equipment. and some other changes. So it was finalized very late last year. This year, it very much looks like we're on schedule. It needs to be filed with the state by October 15th, and we should be in really good shape to make that happen.
And this is not a detailed enough of an audit that's gonna go into the things that Bernie Donikin has made us aware of, like the way we're using the building aid money. It's not, does it get to that depth of?
It really looks at our overall finances and how our systems that we have in place.
Control systems.
Exactly. And the overall financial picture of where we stand with fund balance, that type of thing. So
And
yes, it'll provide us a great deal of information.
So when do you expect that?
September 24th.
So we better carve out time in a board meeting 2 weeks after that date to talk about that thing. What we think?
To accept it, yes.
So will they come and make a presentation?
Yes, they will.
And-
They'll meet with us twice, one to explain the audit findings, and the second one, they'll be available at a board meeting the night that we anticipate the board will accept the findings.
Which means that's when we can have the discussion.
Yes.
At first, it's hard. When they give it to us, it's like written in
Yeah.
5 languages.
And then you
I
can
don't
go away
understand any of them.
and digest it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a couple of weeks, so usually those things are dense.
It's a thick book.
Oh. I'm sorry, so I just wanted to
That's
get a
okay.
sense of what that was about. That's a pretty big deal for us,
It
because
is.
we've, had a little trouble in that area over the years.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
We're on our way, though. It's good. In addition to that, I have new balances on our reserve accounts. I have 6 copies of that. I can pass that out and just show where those reserves are factored out going out to year 14, 15, and 15, 16.
You have,
Yeah, I have 6.
are we gonna talk about this now, or are you just gonna give it to us?
I'll just give it to you to digest. If you have questions after you've taken a look at it, you can either ask me later this evening or.
How different is this from what we saw at the end of the year when we did the budget? Would you,
The only major difference is that on the unemployment reserve, you'll see that number has actually dropped for 12-13. The deduction I've lowered to $10,530. Some of the layoffs that we did have in place, those people are either, they were added back into the budget or they are currently employed. So
Oh.
that's good news.
that is good.
Yeah, so that's reduced.
What
that
were we
figure.
budgeted for?
Initially, I put that figure at 6 people at $405 a week at 52 weeks. So it was roughly 116,000.
Which is what the next year is, that's.
And they're
sort of-
eligible for 99 weeks, so, in each.
Now, if those people that are employed currently lose their employment, are we then responsible to fill that back in?
There is a period of time, it depends on how long they were at that new employer, and I don't have those details. It can potentially come back on us, but 2 of the people are actually teaching, so I doubt, my hope is that they'll be there at least a year or longer.
How big of a deal is it if and when that, because if it goes, let's say we took 116 out in 15-16, and that thing zeroes out, how big of a deal if that's zero?
The big deal is that then that needs to be absorbed in the expenditure budget, which means we need to make that up.
So what do you think is, at some point, someone's gonna tell us what a reasonable contribution to that might be every year?
Yeah.
If we can't let it go to zero, and we need to have roughly $100,000 in there, I'm not a genius, but it looks like we're mostly taking money out.
We are taking, and that's true with all of the reserves.
Yeah, so-
The likelihood of us being able to add back into any of these reserves is not very good. And so we have to instead lessen our dependence on those reserves, which means lessen our expenditures in the overall budget,
Well, that just means we have less people,
potentially,
because we're not gonna do it by telling John and Cisco to copy less.
to cut back on paper. Exactly right.
That ain't gonna, I think those days are pretty much past, right?
85% of our budget roughly is, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
If you lose 5 positions, you're still paying for roughly 2 of them.
because of
It's
this.
$21,000 a year.
And I'm sure every reserve to a certain extent, does every reserve basically have that same story where we would normally rely on it, or some of it we're just paying down because we gotta pay it down?
No, none, The comptroller had recommended that we put money in reserves, but also that we make use of those reserves. So the district has a plan to spend down those reserves, but not just because the comptroller told us to do that, but because we're very much dependent upon them at this point. So I think the biggest one that really makes me a little bit nervous is the retirement contribution. You can see that one's played out for the next 2 years at $420,000. If we had to make that up in our expenditure budget, that's huge.
But
So we need to wean ourselves, and you'll see that going over to 15-16, my proposal is to get it down to at least 220,000, which means each year we're picking up 100,000 or so.
So what is what's the number you want in there? What sort of an annual number do you anticipate we're gonna need in there?
We need to get the majority of this into the budget and not on a reserve. Yeah, essentially what this is saying is that we are spending money and we're taking it from our savings account. Instead, it just needs to be part of our expenditure. It's nice to have the savings account. but it
Well, it's
doesn't
just,
last.
all it's doing is instead of the ARA
Delaying
and
the
TARA
payment.
and TARP and everything they gave us, we've got our own little bailout plan here
Right,
to just lessen the blow over
they're
time.
temporary bailout,
This obviously isn't gonna last forever.
That's right.
exactly.
No, but things are gonna change too, I'm hoping, right? That-
The reserve's gonna go back up.
No, we'll have less kids. That's the reality of it, we're gonna have less kids.
Or that the state aid overall picture, I mean, the difficulty is the revenue picture really doesn't change. Our tax income that we bring as revenue is staying about the same. The tax money, or the state revenue that we bring in remains pretty constant. So without having any changes in those two major revenue streams, we don't have a lot of flexibility here. So at some point, you're right, Frank, maybe the state will change how they do business, and when that revenue stream changes, we'll have more flexibility. Until then, we have about a 4 or 5 year plan.
Whether out everybody's disdain for giving money to the government. That's it. So yeah, that's the only way this is gonna change, because we can't continue to burden the local folks. with
Yeah, it's
this.
not just us though.
No, it's not, it's
Every
everybody.
district.
It's all
It's
districts.
Every district.
Well, and oh my God, we're doing 10 times better than almost everybody, aren't we?
Because of these reserves, that's why we're doing
job
that.
of catching up with it.
Well,
We're on a slippery slope.
yeah,
We are in the slippery slope.
but we have probably one of among the biggest reserves in this area because of the older stuff.
I haven't compared them to other districts, but this sheet of paper in front of you should be a good comfort factor. It's carrying us for a few years. If we didn't have this, we would be like our neighboring districts where we would be making much deeper cuts.
Cisco wouldn't be here.
Right.
There you go, how about that?
There you go.
I'd be the vice
You just want
We'd be running with a vice principal and a high school
Right,
principal.
so if we can just get the damn internet to work. Thank
That's all the
you.
good news I had.
We just had fun giggling.
Sarah?
Well, our special ed programs and our students are running very well, actually. Knock on wood, all the kids look like they're in the right places and getting the right services. We have some transfers coming in and some students going out. Of course, at the beginning of the year, there's always that flux. So we'll be having those meetings set up. But special ed is going well. Summer curriculum is wrapping up, and we're paying our staff for the time and the efforts that they put in on summer curriculum. And I believe out of all the projects, 2 of them were not completed. So out of all the projects that you approved, they were completed, and after reviewing and going through them, they look like quality work. So our teachers worked hard this summer. And then other than that, just helping to transition Cisco and help with SLOs and all that good stuff. So it'll be nice to have a new team member.
Thank you.
Sarah, can you tell us what percentage of our students are classified?
I believe it's 15% out of our little over 1,200.
That's gone down?
That's good.
That's gone
Yeah,
down?
it has gone down
Yes.
significantly over the years.
Yeah.
It's up 15%.
I thought I remember the upper 20s.
No.
No?
Free and reduced lunch.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm confusing it
Yeah,
with.
that's about
15 is
That's what
still
I'm
high.
confusing it
15 is still high.
Compared to our neighboring districts, it's very good.
Eugene?
The elementary school had a very smooth opening, thanks to John and Douglas for coming to help transport our little kindergartners to their classrooms the first day. It went very well, and we had a second year in a row with no criers, so except for the parents, but we can't help with that. We have been working really hard on scheduling our first round of APPR dates. So if you want to see what it looks like to try to cram in all of the goal meetings and the other things that we're doing, I would be happy to share with you what that actually looks like in a chart, because I really like to make charts. But it's been a great opening. The students, it was a very smooth transition. Teachers are happy to be back, so it's been great. And we're at about 72 kindergartners.
So that's like 7 from the first number we heard from you.
We had 1 register today.
Excellent.
They're still coming.
72. I think the first number we heard was 65. And that got my attention. That's literally half of what we're about to graduate. And 72's not, I mean, it's a little better.
Cisco, would you like to try your first 2 or 3 days?
Well,
Or eventful?
no, things have been great. We have our open house coming up here shortly. So that's on the 20th, and I've been getting my feet wet, and Sarah's been transitioning means this. Transition. I've learned that's code. So no, but it's been going really well. Everybody's been very, accepting and getting me up to snuff with what's going on and what I need to know. And it's been a nice transition. So tomorrow I do my first video announcement to the school and introduce myself to everybody. So that's it.
Thank you.
First, I want to thank you all again for approving our calendar change to allow us to do freshman orientation. Last week, we had an awesome day with our 9th grade students. I want to congratulate Robin McCauley, our Dean of Students. She was the one who was responsible for organizing and coordinating that entire event, did a fabulous job. We had, I think, upwards of 20 student mentors here helping teach the freshmen about life in the high school. They did a lot of team building activities, spent a lot of time really emphasizing character and the importance of making it count while you're in high school. So it was a huge success in getting our 9th grade off on the right foot. Friday, excuse me. I'm forgetting that it's Monday now. I'm trying to black out what happened yesterday.
All that money.
Proud about you.
All that
I never cared in the past, and now I care.
So Friday, though, we had a great day. We did class assemblies with each of the grade levels, again, focusing a lot on character. We talked about our new honor code, talked with the kids about the new DASA law and about the importance of character and, the golden rule. But it was a great conversations with the kids. The staff have started working on SLOs. We did a faculty meeting last Wednesday where we were talking about that process and getting them rolling with that, taking advantage of our technology using Google Docs, and it's been a great start to that process. So we're on track, right where we want to be.
Thank you.
And I would like to invite Vika to share a little bit from the students' perspective.
Okay. So as you already mentioned, Wednesday for freshmen and new students, I think that was a really good idea, and it made the kind of like the second day of school for the rest, like 10 through 12, go like a lot more smooth, because I remember my first day of freshman, they got my schedule screwed up, and I thought I was supposed to go to one room. They were telling me I had to go to another room, and I got caught without a pass in the hallway, and it was really scary. So I really think that was nice for all the other freshmen and new students. And I think this week all the clubs are starting. Fantastic is having their first meeting on Thursday, along with the student council and the school improvement team. So that's pretty much it. I think everything's just starting now, so not much to report.
Thank you. Moving along, open forum. At this time, we would like to give district residents an opportunity to ask any questions about this agenda or about operations within the school district. Personnel matters will not be addressed in public session. Comments may be recorded and responded to by the Board of Education or superintendent at a later date. We ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Anyone? New business. I suspect I have to read all this.
You? I think we should enter into the record and have Michael explain it to us in English.
Let's do that.
I don't know, is that allowed procedurally? Do you think there's value to him reading it?
No.
Okay. I would say that's very unanimous.
Love it.
You asked. I'd say is it procedurally okay, as far as you guys know? To accept it as written?
I believe it is.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Good. Okay.
Any further discussion?
Is this you or you? Or
Yeah, it can be us.
What am I talking about?
I don't know.
Well,
The
this
seeker.
is the seeker, which is an environmental impact statement, basically, and it just says that the board, that we've looked with our architects and other people, we've looked around and contacted other people who might take the lead on making sure to monitor a possible project for its impact on the environment. And
the paperwork's all submitted?
No one else is interested in doing it, so the board can, by approving this resolution, says that the board will be, the district will be the lead agent in making sure the environment is protected in any kind of capital project.
So who are we hiring to do that for us?
Well, it's
Isn't the BDA doing it?
yeah.
It's pretty boilerplate.
It's our
already, all the paperwork, all the investigation's been done, and mostly from an environmental perspective, you're looking at two things, whether we're impacting a historical building, which would be the middle school, and there is no major impact to that building, and or your campus, your district, your green spaces, and that's where Mike Herzog, who is the site engineer, which is subcontracted to Beardsley Design, takes care of any of those issues, stormwater runoff, those types of things, and all of those will now be put into place.
So do we get reports, Mike? Do they do we get seeker things that they monitor, or is it a matter of making sure the silt fence is up if they dig a hole?
Basically, that's going to happen through the construction management team. They'll make sure that those flood plans are taken care of on a daily basis.
Sylvescus takes care of that.
Correct. Just a monitoring kind of thing to make sure we're following through on standard environment.
And the significance of us doing it over somebody else doing it, I don't understand.
Basically, it's a requirement to reach out to like New York State DEC, New York State Education Department, there's a Historical Preservation Department in New York State. None of those people want to take the lead agency on it. It's pretty standard for school districts and their Board of Education to be the lead agency on the projects. It's pretty standard.
Somebody has to, and the board has to decide that.
How long is this good for?
Well, I asked that of Steve Moulin today, and he said that it's as long as, because I asked him specifically, is there a time limit on seeker action? And he said as long as we are not expanding the scope of the project that the seeker is based on, that he doesn't know of any time limit. It's only if we were to go for 11 acres rather than 10 or something like that, where we'd have to go back and redo the process and reach out again to these agencies and have them again decline and go through the process again. But he doesn't know. And then that was also confirmed by Tim McGill.
Any other questions?
Mike, these are primarily, besides historical buildings, it's preserving wetlands or some endangered species or water quality.
Water quality,
None of which
pollutant streams going down the creek.
Right. So
Well, you start moving a lot of dirt. If we do that track and you start moving a lot of dirt, there's a significant risk to a lot of places. So there's just, as long as somebody's watching that the silt fences are up, they have integrity, if there's monitoring of any kind, of discharge of any kind, where's the fuel stored on site, it's all a bunch of, it is procedural, but when it says that we're the lead agency, I'm thinking, well, none of us are gonna, well, maybe you, but.
I was thinking you.
Yeah, none of us are gonna be able to monitor So as long as we've got people that are doing it, and this is normal, that it falls to us, and we have competent people that we pay to do it, who advise us, then this is pretty straightforward.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? B, approval for private transportation. Was there a motion as
So
presented?
moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion?
Do we, was this not what we normally do?
What's this?
Private school transportation, don't we normally transport kids to private school?
Yeah.
Yes, but they all go before the board for approval, and the majority of them were submitted in May. But these are some later requests that have come in, so we've asked them to process them through the normal channels before we provide transportation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? C, the NISBA amendments and rebuttals to proposed resolutions. What, I'm looking for a motion,
So moved.
a second?
So who's gonna do it?
Well, Douglas is going, and I'm going.
Well, I'm going, but not to vote.
You don't want to be there. on
No, I'm
Saturday.
speaking. I can't, I'm going on Thursday, I think.
So Doug,
Thursday?
I think I am.
In the lockup? It's cool.
Not in the log, oh, not Thursday then, Friday?
Yeah, Friday.
Saturday. I don't know, one of the days. The one day where they wanna talk about, grounds. I'm talking to up there and talk about grass. Tell them how great a grass guy we got here.
We get arranged.
so Douglas, would you like to be the primary?
I wrote to Tina about this. I certainly can be.
Well-
It looks rather self-serving if a member of the board is sitting there voting on board resolutions, but I can.
I'll do the primary, Douglas.
Do you disagree
Just as
with
you did.
any of the board resolutions?
No,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, the board, for the first time ever, came out in favor of all of them this year.
But I do think for appearance, it might be good if you do.
Well, I'm usually the primary, I'll be happy to take it again. If you agree for the secondary.
I'm tough.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? D, this has a little bit of significance to it. Merger with the Ithaca City School District Girls Ice Hockey Program.
So moved.
Discussion?
Do we have an ice hockey program?
We do now, we do
Well, I was gonna say, how did we merge? How did we merge
We have-
something with
We
something that
have,
doesn't
we have
exist?
an ice hockey, a young lady who plays ice hockey.
We have the
who's
goalie.
here tonight.
Just
But
one.
They
she
want
will be-
us.
Oh, I think this is great. Don't misrepresent me at all. I just, if we've been budgeting for an ice hockey team, I'd like to know where the rink is, because I have to. Maybe they're hiding it somewhere around here, and I just don't know where it is.
Next to the swimming pool.
Right.
So we have to allow our kid to play ice hockey with it.
Just, this is just like we have invited the boys from Newfield to play on our football team.
And a few years ago, we did bowling with Lansing, because we didn't have enough people to.
Is it you? Yeah, hi. What's your name? Caitlin, what position? You're a goalie.
That's why they really want this merger.
Yeah.
So is this like Central New York recruiting for hockey?
It's good.
They're really good, right? That's right. They played in,
We
won
wanted to play
it.
with it before, and their school board last year wouldn't let us play down there. So we actually played for a team out of Rochester. So
I recall.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, you gotta stop that.
So this
You
year.
live in
doing
Dewey?
that too.
You're a student here? Have you been here a long?
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Kidding me?
And so Caitlin, how will you get there, back and forth?
Here you go, Frank, that'll answer all your questions.
I guess we couldn't be here, I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay.
They were talking about arranging transportation to get her there. We can get her back, so
Okay.
whatever works.
When do they practice?
Pardon me?
Morning,
Yeah.
morning,
Yeah.
night? When do they practice?
Depends on the day.
Okay. Usually in the evening?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye, you go, girl. This is really good. Really good.
Did everybody get this?
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay, earlier you handed an MOA.
Two.
Two, actually. This is, E is authorization to MOA agreement. Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Looking for a second?
A second.
Discussion?
What is this?
We can do them both. E and F in the same.
But this one is a cleanup of when support staff take extended leaves that it's unpaid. We just needed to have that in language.
It's not altering anything.
The name mentioned in here is for real or fictitious?
For real.
For real? So this amends the contract.
I only see a name on the second one, Frank, is that what you're referring to?
I'm looking at insurance.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That's the, I don't know, that's the one tabled on the front.
Yeah, the contract language is not very clear, but at this point, it appears that from that contract, that insurance is available to our support staff employees regardless of the number of hours that they are employed. So if it is fewer than 4 hours, they are still eligible to carry insurance. We were in a position where we could have filled that, it was a split position between two departments. We could have filled it with one person filling both roles, and this person felt very strongly that they would like to continue in just a piece of the role, which is far fewer than 4 hours a day. So that's why the MOA, because the district felt strongly that we didn't want to pay benefits on someone working less than 3 hours a day.
Is it common to put an MOA in a contract for a single person? Or does this set a precedence for people who are thinking about doing this in the future? Is it common that MOAs go in contracts?
I think from what I'm learning, a lot of times MOAs are about one employee. So,
has this person agreed to this?
Yes.
Is there a reason that we haven't generalized or changed, renegotiated the contract?
We actually should be looking at that. In this particular case, if you're paying an individual to work 2 hours a day, and then if you were to pay out a family benefits package, you're looking at dollars far exceed what the salary is, yeah.
It's $16,000.
I think it was a situation, I wasn't here at that time, where the contract was written, and I don't know if it was an oversight, but.
I guess my question is, if the union is signing off on this and this person is signing off on this, isn't this then an opportune time to not make this an individual agreement, as Frank is bringing up, but make it an addendum to the contract or a memorandum of understanding to the entire contract, so that we're not dealing with an individual?
Yeah, that could be the next step.
Yeah, that could be the next step, but there's differing board philosophies on that, so we would probably need clear direction from the board before we head down that road.
So this is a baby step?
Correct.
Rather than going to the discussion with this note here today.
Yeah, this is pretty unique. This individual was fine with it, and they have another source of insurance.
And no one feels it sets a precedence that we have to follow? I mean, that we need a bit, like what Gary's saying, that we actually want a bigger policy around?
I think this is separate from the step that Gary's speaking.
I don't understand how you can make a bigger policy when we have a contract.
Right.
Yeah, that's where the discussion gets much bigger if we make it bigger than one person. That's why I sort of wanted to get a sense of it.
This is an unusual circumstance in that for the most part, we would not be hiring someone just to work 2 hours a day as a school monitor.
So what is the second part of this, the leave? Is it for the same person? Or is this a policy change to the contract?
Article 9.
Are we doing them both together, E and F? So can we have some, this doesn't seem to have a person's name on it.
It doesn't. It's more general. When support staff, the board earlier or like in August, approved an unpaid leave, and we don't really have a mechanism to do that. So this just formalizes that a leave of absence is unpaid. I think we can offer that. Remember,
has that been our past practice though? That leaves of absences are always unpaid?
I don't know that we've had a leave of absence from the support staff.
Oh, support staff.
Yeah, not like that.
Oh, I see, okay, because we've had it for faculty.
Correct.
How often do people take significant leaves like this that's not medical or disability of some sort?
This has been.
This isn't about this Mr. Soybean guy, is it?
No,
No.
but it's happened enough that we thought we needed an MOA.
Okay.
in it.
So this is a policy change to the contract. You comfortable with that?
For one person.
No, that's
No,
it.
this
This
isn't
is
general.
not for one
That-
person.
That if.
This is
well,
giving us a mechanism for something apparently we don't have a mechanism for right now.
Well, it used to be when people asked for time off in that 10 month, it was declined because their services are necessary, as in the soybean guy.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So now we have a policy that will allow us, if we choose, to give them unpaid leave, that
It's
unpaid
unpaid.
person unpaid
Yeah.
leave.
It's unpaid.
Used to be you couldn't take it.
At all.
Right. Or you would forfeit your job.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So okay, I see.
This is actually protection for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could be seen.
But it is a change to the entire contract.
Yes.
So,
Well, it's
in
an
terms of the
addition.
more global question of whether we can do that, yes, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's an interesting little conundrum we're in there. Philosophically, how do you feel about that?
Pardon?
It's not automatically granted.
No, it
It goes
isn't
from the
automatically
board for
granted, but in the
decision.
past,
Goes to the superintendent.
So there seems to be something about whether we want to do anything the contracts were signed under, and I guess the way I feel about that is, there's a part of me completely in, look, sign the damn thing, if we screwed up, we need to work to the next time and not screw up that time, either party. But if there's a time when everybody agrees to it, and there's no, animosity between parties, then, and philosophically, this doesn't seem to cut that deep like the previous thing would. Philosophically, this seems sort of superficial, right? We just need a mechanism to do this, so, I don't know. How does everybody feel about changing the contract?
If both parties
We do it all the
agree.
time. I mean, we do it all the time, not all the time, but
It happens.
it happens routinely. Even with CPA, it happens routinely.
Watch your paycheck.
And this has been done before on the superintendent level. This is about the first that's actually come before the board as part of the thing.
Well, I like the idea that if somebody, there are cases where, hey, maybe you want to do that conference for a few days. Right now, the only bailout they've had is that they basically lie to us and go on the cruise, or lie to us and go on the conference, right? So how about this allows us to keep it all above board. We know what you're doing. You have a mechanism now to do it. In some ways, it's sort of a benefit.
It is.
If they didn't get the option and had to lie to us to go, I think it's better that we're upfront with them. Seems like even a dope like me could figure that out.
This works. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Under old business, coordinator for the continuing education program, CEP. Appoints Teresa Soster as coordinator of the continuing ed program for the rate of $4,000. Any discussion?
can I mention that this was the last of all those appointments. Remember, we pulled them off that one agenda. I finally had my chance to speak with Teresa, and she told me that we talked a lot about the program, and that's good for the community. A lot of people, she has like 900 people in her email database about programs that people just expect every year. And she said basically her $4,000 comes in from fees, so it is not like an extra expense to the district. And that's a good thing. It's good public relations for us to have it going.
So can I assume now, everybody that we formally appointed like that, you've met now?
Or talk to principals, and as we get through this year and face next year, we'll probably be looking at everything again. But I have, these are all my recommendations for this year.
Yeah. So you sort of waited to meet everybody. You waited to meet Teresa before we approved.
She was my last one, but there were several that I just wanted some time to talk to, like John, about high school yearbook and some things like that. So
good. Thanks for doing that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have anything in policy? Board forum?
Yeah.
If I can jump in there before we get too far, I'd like to see if we can have a finance committee meeting at the next one, because we haven't had one to start off the year, before the next board meeting.
6 p.m. 24th.
When's the next board meeting? 24th? 24th?
Yes.
2 weeks from tonight.
And that'll be all of us.
Is that when the auditors are coming?
24th.
So 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, yes.
That is.
6, not 7. Oh, 6, the finance committee, okay.
Right, and that's actually when the audit committee meets, at 6 PM with the Bonadio group.
They're gonna be here?
Correct,
It's perfect.
So we'll be here at 6 PM on the 24th, I need to make sure to set up.
correct.
And we'll have the internet by then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Peter?
Well, I know I've been asked, I need to bring up the progress in the capital project. I think that, I know 3 of us on the facilities committee have worked for, what, a year? More than a year, to try and get this in front of the board for a resolution. And I sent a letter out to all the, email out to all the board members and some others, sort of highlighting the considerations, of which there are many, about this proposed $10.8 million project. And I know that if, like, as I said in my letter, if we decide on this today, it's not gonna happen for 2 years. Every 2 weeks that goes by pushes that bidding process closer to when summer is and the prices go up. If you get bids in January, companies look for their year. You get bids in May, and they'll give you a price that you really gotta want to do it. I am disturbed at the slowness of the progress we're having, and I also don't really know what everybody else on the board thinks about our project. Our project basically includes redoing a couple of roofs. I think a partial high school and a partial elementary. And that's, I don't know, $2 or $3 million. What are the numbers here? Maybe Mike will jump in.
Yeah. And then the athletic facility.
The athletic
That's the
facility.
big nut, right?
Redoing the track and.
The bleachers, the fields.
Yep, a couple of fields. That's $3 million. Replacing the windows in the middle school, that's $1 million. A number of Americans with disability projects that have come up. And also redoing the middle school stairs, which has been on hold for how many years now?
Well, I figure if we hold out enough.
What did you think?
It'll
Those
be $3
middle
million.
school
If we
stairs.
hold out another couple of years, it'll be $3 million to do the stairs.
They are ugly. Well, you don't have to comment just yet. I'll give you 2 weeks.
And then you better stay there ugly, since
You're
gonna have one less vote on it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, there are benefits to slow playing this, but we've been slow playing it for months now, and with no end in sight. And I want to ask the other board members what is their thinking on it? I mean, do we want to go ahead and do this big project, or are we thinking maybe of slowing things down? I mean, how much, you have to remember that the capital reserve money, and tell me if I'm wrong, Kimberly,
You got it.
is specifically for this purpose.
That's correct.
We have enough in the capital reserve, which is built up over the last 4 or 5 years, to do this project with no tax impact.
Correct.
We have been
Right
sure
now, a
that.
$10.8 million project with 0 impact to the taxpayer
Correct.
by using the $3 million that's in our current
Correct.
reserve.
0 for the life of the debt.
Correct.
Using $3 million from the reserve.
Right.
Well, it means using the reserves. There'd be no reserves left.
Which, we operated with very little in there for many, many years. Matter of fact, we just transferred 60 that was sitting there and another one into that one, so. It's not unusual that those are low. Douglas, what are you saying
Well,
there?
my concern is what will we have left for the odd emergency?
$66,555.
Yeah.
according-
Correct.
According to this little chart.
Gary has his chart, that's correct.
And how much capacity are we gonna be having in the near future to build that up again?
I don't believe we'll have any capacity to build that up in the future, because we'll be looking at absorbing those other expenditures.
Yeah.
Like, the retirement contribution of $420,000 annually. So we need to back our way out of that. And, in 11-12, we did not have any additional fund balance to contribute to our reserves. So the likelihood of having additional fund balance next year is not very good.
We were on track, or it was proposed that there would be a public referendum in December.
Yeah.
We're still on track in terms of having the foundation laid to do that?
We are on track. The timeline is that we did need to do this, the board did need to approve the seeker, but October 15th is really on October 16th, if we wake up and the board has not acted, then we will not be able to have a December 11th election. So we really have until then to have this conversation with the board and the community, or however you would choose to have that.
So that's 2 more meetings, right? September 24th and whatever the first one in October.
And that's based on how many times you have to advertise in the papers, and there's a local paper and a wider circulation paper, and so.
Have we made any plans to have BDA come and present this final 10.8 to the board, or?
To my knowledge, no. We pretty much put together the 10.8, provided it to the facilities committee, and then it was up to the facilities committee to have that dialogue with the superintendent.
Which is what we're doing now.
If you were wanting to consider something different, then we needed some direction on which way you wanted us to go.
I think what needs to be publicly stated is that the capital reserve money is very much separate from the money that is spent day to day keeping our buildings and programs going for our students. And so that's just definitely what I want the public to hear, that this $3 million has been set aside from previous years of savings, and that's the money that would be used on the capital project, versus the yearly, daily money that is spent to keep the programs running, teachers paid. And so when I talk about we're using our reserves, such as the employee retirement contribution, and that's money that we'll see go away and we eventually need to absorb in our expenditure budget, that's where you'll see the day-to-day, potentially some cuts this spring, because we do need to back off our reliance on those reserves. But this capital project that we're talking about takes on a separate life of its own and has a separate pool of money of its own, not to be confused with our day-to-day money.
We need to hear from people about this. This is good. Where are you guys at?
I would really like to hear from our athletic director on this. As the parent of a former track kid, who pole vaulted and did hurdles and all of that, I know, for example, that hurdles are just not a possibility with the track and the condition it's in, which would lead me to think that perhaps that sort of track program is not a possibility.
Douglas, I can speak for Matt with one voice in terms of the dire need for the track.
That just worries the heck out of me.
We can't hold a whole meet right now.
They can't do a thing.
And when nearly a quarter of the school is on our track team, and we have numerous consecutive years of sectional titles, it's a point of pride for our district that our track team is the best in the area and has been for a long time and continues to have. And the fact that
So what does that say? So
we roll out a plastic mat on the track to be able to practice out there safely, and we can't hold a
How
home
safe
meet.
is that?
So I know that there is an abundance of community support. There is a ton of support from the boosters. They're just begging to get this going. So.
If I could add too, the track isn't a standalone. Included in that is the bleachers, which have been noted on probably the last 7 or 8 insurance carrier inspections as in need of replacement. They had some major work done about 8 or 9 years ago, but they are on the verge of failure. We may be cordoning off those people who stand for home games, so that's another piece to it. And I think the other thing you need to recognize is the track is not just about athletics. It's about K-12 physical education program as well. So it's tied in campus-wide, district-wide. And the last thing about the track is one of the reasons we're trying to work through this project and a referendum this fall was the desire by the community and the board to get the track work started in the summer of 2013. If we push out our decisions much farther, you're going to be putting off the track until 2014 simply by default. You're not going to get designs done in time and bids back in time and all of that. So
Will the track be used in 2013 if we get started?
it would track is generally in the spring.
Right.
So yes, they would complete the majority of it in the summer and through the fall of 2013.
But as far as the stands in there go, also that's used by the football team when you play on
Right,
the field.
right. So that would definitely just have to be staged so that we could meet the needs of the program. But we've had to offset programs before because of some of these types of renovations where we've had to have teams play on different fields or something, or have play all of our away games at the beginning of the season and then home games towards the end, kind of thing. So that's all doable.
So the other things that are on the list, Peter, I don't know. You mentioned the roofs. I mean,
What's on
are
the
these
list?
things that are failing?
These are priority
Well-
one items, right? In the,
The priority one items in our, we started out with $17 million
of priority ones.
of priority ones, then cut it down to 10.8, because we want to have no tax impact.
That's what we've said as a board.
As a board, we said that over last year.
Because, you know, we got that money, we got $3 million, we got
Some of
from
the other
taxing.
issues that it resolves, the parent drop-off situation in the elementary school, which is very difficult, and it's been problematic.
Very.
This redesigns that.
At the new stairs?
What's that?
The drop-off points at the new stairs?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a cluster right now.
Yeah, it's a mess.
There's redoing various smaller, I'd say small, $133,000 in small, crawl space or ventilating the crawl space. Mike, tell me if I'm wrong.
That was a two-part project, installing ventilation in the crawl space and insulating the foundation walls because of condensation. The installation piece still has not been completed. It was an alternate under phase 3. We didn't have enough money to complete it, so it was put back into our next capital project as a priority. Basically, that project we started 3 years ago, we're only half done.
Glenn, things with 0 are things that got crossed off, things with 1.
I mean, fundamentally, I mean, I'm fairly confident, because I sat in the facilities committee, so my sense is that that's pretty stripped down to things that we've got to do, because they're the closest to the end of their useful life. Or they needed to get finished from the last project that we finished. The bigger question is, do we want to do this work? What risk do we put the district at doing the work financially, or not doing the work for the risk we take outliving the useful life of some of these things? Now,
Especially true with the roofs, yeah.
especially to the roofs, okay. So then, so there's interim options, right? That's the whole nut is the 10 million. We've got that figured out. We've got some presentations, and it'll probably, the stairs will go up another couple $100,000, and then we'll have to change the number again. But I mean, the bigger point is, then is there an interim step, which means not go to referendum, just fix what we can for the 3 mil. Or is there things in there for the 3 mil?
But you don't get aid on that.
We don't get aid, no, but that's the money that we got, and it still has 0 impact, so that's an interim option, right? I mean, you may not like it, but it is an
Well,
option.
I don't believe not getting aid is an option.
Well, the track is 2.5 named that itself.
Yeah.
So if we all feel so strongly that this is something we need to take.
Well, I don't know, I mean, I think we gotta get a sense of the broader questions.
The state aid right now is 84% on the dollar. If you start spending your own money,
Ours.
and Bernie Donegan said this, don't be spending your own money without getting aid.
So there's 2 points, I only wanna bring up a couple of points that your letter addressed and that we talked about before, about the future of school districts in New York. First is, we gotta,
May I ask you a question?
yeah,
Okay, Kimberly, if I understand you correctly,
that once we spent this $3 million out of reserve, capital reserve,
Correct.
that's now zero.
Correct.
How, we have not addressed how we're going to have to return money to that without raising taxes, have we?
Your next capital project would,
Have tax.
you'd be dependent upon the taxpayer dollar.
Which is the way they know it. Which is the way they know it.
Yeah.
That number is usually pretty low, and that got me, like, we have 3 million, but in the past, we've had very little in there.
Correct.
It's a very low priority reserve, is the sense.
But we had money in there when we started our current project.
Yes.
We had $1 million plus or something,
Oh, we
which, by
did.
the way, what's the progress? I'd like to know.
Well, numbers can differ.
What's the number?
No.
Surely you jest.
There's no such thing as a.
Surely you jest.
Close it.
They're as close as they can be right now.
Yeah, well, most of, I think the athletic numbers are pretty,
Herzog's good, those are probably good numbers for Mike.
Cheaper than $500,000 for.
it's creating a new one.
No, it's the new problem. And I tell you what, the 90% of that cost is in excavation and hauling shit and stuff here. That's what it is. Yeah. I'm not sure I want, I love them on my driveway, I'm not sure I wanted to build a field.
Right, right.
But, we got a really good track team. We got the best track team within 100 miles of here. Everybody's envious. Our track sucks. Track doesn't matter. That's my first gut sense. The fact, it's compelling that, and I got kids that
It
play
doesn't matter
track.
because you gave us your own kids compete, because every time they run, they gotta run an hour
Well,
away.
and I go there.
Not almost good.
Well, that's a good point. So I'm willing to accept that. But what about the broader question of the state of New York and the state and the future of school districts in our area? That, does every school district really need a fancy, I'm not saying safety-wise, because I think people need to be safe. They come to watch a game. We don't want them falling to the floor. Okay, I'm with you on that. But listen, I want the track. I'm not saying I don't want the track. I'm just saying, what does it say to taxpayers in general? We say, well, don't worry about it. The state's going to cover 84%. Where the hell does that money come from? That comes from me and you and everybody else too. So,
Every
okay,
school is competing for that state money.
I understand that.
If
but
we don't compete for it,
We still pay.
the next guy will get it.
I'm with you 100% on that. But
There you go.
how intent will, we already got kids playing football across thing. Now we got a hockey player playing somewhere. In the next couple of years, this is going to keep happening. I think one thing that could happen, because we're really good, the coaches are good, the schools may send them here. We're the track school.
They used to.
Right, you know what I mean? And then maybe Ithaca's the hockey school, and Groton is the football school. I don't know if we keep this infrastructure the way out. I'm thinking 10 years out.
I am too.
So I'm saying, I want the track, do I think it needs to be approved? Absolutely. I mean, that's no question about it. Do we care about the message we're sending that, I don't know, I know it's community pride, but you're not a pride guy, right? You don't like naming things after people.
The message, I'll tell you something about the message we send. I'm not, but.
I know.
What about the message we send to our athletes who practice out there every day and then they have to go somewhere else to compete? I think the psychology of that is
they're winning.
Frank,
It's the one sport we win in.
Hey, people running canyon win, you know.
That's right.
Now, some people might think this is a stretch, but honestly, you talk about graduation rate as a goal. Part of having a successful high school is having pride in your school. You know, Peter, we joke all the time about the stairwells at the middle school. But you know what? The quality of those stairwells has an impact on the behavior of the kids when they're walking up and down those stairwells. You know, you have really beautiful, clean walls like I have in the high school. Kids don't graffiti the high school walls. Our bathrooms are immaculate, well-maintained, beautifully clean. People don't take a marker out and draw on the walls in the bathrooms in our school. And that has a direct impact on the pride that kids take in school. The pride that kids take in our school also has an impact on the fact that they want to be here. Those kids, you know, when I came to the game on Friday night, the fact that those rickety old stands were full on Friday night, even though we lost by 2 points, you know, there was pride in the way our boys performed on the football field. You know, and it's not always about winning and losing. It really is about having pride in our community and being excited about being.
And some of that, in your opinion, is tied to the physical plan.
It absolutely is directly because if kids aren't happy with the facility, their behavior starts to degrade. That means that they're paying less attention to what they should be doing in the classrooms. There is a lot to be said. There's a lot of research. That's why when you see new schools being built all over the country in places where they are expanding, they have these big, beautiful glass foyers where they come in. Because all the architects have done their research. They have psychologists on their team, and they talk with people about the fact that when you come into your school and you have a beautiful entrance, it sets your day off right. It opens your mind for learning. And I know that that's a stretch to say our track has an impact on that. But you know what? When the kids come into the school, and a quarter of those kids are running on the track team, and that's the thing that they're all excited about, and they're all ganged up about it, and they're wearing silly T-shirts with funny names on their back. That's school pride. And school pride leads to pride in what we accomplish in the classroom too. So it really does have an impact.
They can't even practice on this track.
Yeah.
Because they can't wear cleats on this track.
Yeah.
They can't wear the shoes they would normally wear when they're competing.
I know.
On their home track.
Yeah, this is my second kid on the track team. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah.
I think there's two other aspects of this that we need to talk about.
At what cost? I mean, eventually we're gonna have to answer this.
One is that, and Mike made a good point, although I think it might have gotten lost in the other parts of the discussion, is that this is part of a K-12 physical education curriculum, which right now, we can't even say safely we could provide that. So if we transferred that scenario into a classroom, there'd be no question that we would be making changes to that classroom instantly.
Yeah.
Because it's an unsafe teaching and learning environment. So that's one thing I think we ought to consider. The other is, I agree with what you're saying, John, in terms of pride in your school and how it translates both in student behavior and academic performance. But I think the other thing that we've talked about and Frank has raised, I bet in almost every meeting over the past year and a half or 2 years, is our declining population. And there's only two things that bring people to this community as far as the school district is concerned: our academic performance and our athletic and musical performances. And we're starting to take 1/3 of that right out of the equation, literally. And I think if we're concerned about our student population, if we're concerned about growing our tax base, then we need to look to be able to provide to the prospective residents to say, we're second to none. Unless you want a city environment, which is Ithaca, which we can't compete and we're not going to ever, then, you know, we are the top-notch school district to come to, and in addition to that, we have a center community that no other school district can say they have. And so I think those are also two compelling reasons that we should look at moving forward on this. I agree with Frank, and historically, these reserves have been, I mean, but at times when I was principal, they were zero. And we've built them up and spent them down and built them up based on exactly how we did it with this $3 million. There was money to be used in some meaningful, significant way that we had collected through taxes that we did not want to put towards the next year's budget, and so we put them into reserves, whether it was capital reserve projects or transportation or computers or whatever. And so we've spent them down in the past, and we built them back up, and I don't purport to say that we're going to build this back up in 1 or 2 years to $3 million, but also in the past we've gone out with building projects where we've asked the taxpayers to say, okay, over the course of 20 years, this is going to mean, you know, X number of cents on your tax levy. And that's part of the
Well,
game.
that's the price you pay, and like you're saying, it's the price you pay to keep your house value high.
So if I may, we need an answer whether to move forward by the 15th of October.
The scope of the project and what goes on the ballot needs to be decided on that.
I have lots of questions, and some of them are actually toward the architect. But what I would like to do is set the very next meeting as discussion and ask the architects to come in, anybody who is involved in this that we're paying anyway, and then we'll move the audit committee meeting to the 15th of October.
Oh, no,
No.
sorry.
Can't?
That needs to be
Well,
filed
then,
with.
but I would
Well, hold on a
like,
second. Is there anybody, I mean, I want to get a sense. It seems to me our decision is not with the details of the project. Because we know, if anybody on this board thinks these numbers are close to being real, they're in la-la land. Because these numbers are going to change like a hurricane.
and I'm concerned about that.
But the bigger question, because then we'll make adjustments, but fundamentally, we gotta tell these two people, that are three people, whoever's gonna carry this load, you better saddle up, because we're gonna do this project. That's what I think is the decision we fundamentally have to make. The details of it, we're gonna go crazy.
But
as a
we don't have
facilities
to make
committee.
that decision tonight, is what
Right,
I'm
but
saying.
what I'm saying is, I don't believe we needed a meeting with an architect, who I know is, Peter believes is gonna give us a line of baloney anyway.
I want somebody to explain to me why a water cooler costs $11,000.
Yeah, well, okay, but we either wanna do this project or we don't. I think fundamentally, that's a decision we have to make soon.
So in this process, when we have the ball field, and we have estimated $500, this is the bid process, the facilities committee gets together, and go out and they take bids from contract?
No, the architect gets it together and,
It's our project document,
yeah,
a bid document that people then submit sealed bids to.
we get bids and then there may be an adjustment to what we can and can't do.
Right.
So the architect goes out and gets the bids from people?
Once we approve, what he gives us is a rough idea of what the number's gonna be. Now, since I've been on the board, Glenn, I saw this happen once. Twice, the second phase and the third phase. Second phase went out, well, first of all, we had a big crop project.
In the previous.
Yeah, in the previous thing, we had a bunch of money left over, because it was a tough economic time. Contractors were happy to get work, prices came in low, we got 3 phases out of it.
It was a $9.6 million capital project, and the original cost was around 7.
Yeah, it came in
The bids came in at
under
7.
Yeah.
This was right, 2-3 years ago when everything crashed. So we had more money and we were able to improve the facilities.
And then we did a phase 2 and a phase 3. Sometimes you don't get those other phases.
Right, or sometimes you have to cut something out. What happens though is if we get, this requires voter approval, 10.8 million, and then everything goes into gear, we have a basic outline of what we want to do and basically how much it costs. The bids come back, if the bids come back at 12 million, then we as a board we only have 10.8. We have to decide what goes.
Basically, what you'll do is, the referendum is just to approve the maximum dollar amount. So you look at the 10.8. Once the voters approve that, the architects and engineers are then charged with designing to that 10.8. So what you would do is you would take sections of that project and you would build them in as alternates, potential alternates, just like you've seen every phase. So that should the prices come in higher than expected, we have some safety valves to stay within the 10.8. That's standard operating procedure.
I think, let me jump in here. I think what Glenn's asking is, how do we go about maybe getting a more realistic figure out of the architect or the bid process? Or don't?
I'm trying to understand the process. I mean, who is this architect? And frankly, I'm in the home building business, and every time an architect's involved, things cost 10 times more than they should.
Okay, so we
why do we have an
We got another
architect?
Peter.
Why do we even have an architect? Is what I want to know. We're building baseball fields. What do we need an architect for?
Because you have to have somebody to sue if it doesn't work. That's why.
So
we're not
point
successful
man,
on
does it
that.
have to be literally an architect, or is there somebody who's project manager?
We have a project manager.
We have both.
Yeah, you have to have an architect.
Can't do a
you have to
project,
have
they won't give you
drawings.
money unless
You can't
they
just
think you
sketch
don't
these
They
things
want
out.
money for a pretty picture of the
So-
baseball field.
Is that a?
Yeah, there's no way around that, we're stuck there.
All right, I'd like to say, we owe it to the taxpayers to put something out there, they're the ultimate yes or no.
Well, we have to be clear that there's politics involved here, and this is what Kimberly's point is, which is, I think we should do the project, because up until recently I thought we were, and then I think there's other issues. And one of them is, every year for the next several years, we are potentially gonna downsize our staff between 5 and 10%, which means 5 or 10 people that are next to the kids are gonna lose their jobs. That is absolutely reality of board service nowadays. And we're gonna do that, even though we're gonna spend $10 million. The community is gonna have a hard time getting their arm around that. if we do it in December, and then in May, lay 6 to 10 people off, you are on this board because you sat at a meeting saying, wait a minute, you got 3 million, why don't you use it for this music teacher? People don't understand.
The math teacher.
The math, whatever.
Not the music
The
teacher.
math
Really, why can't we do that?
And that is
She
the,
just said why we
that's
can't do it, right?
that's really what the public needs to hear, is that that capital reserve fund can only be used for new capital projects and cannot be used to fund our everyday expenses such as teacher salaries.
That's the
So-
problem.
And if I would have realized at the time that some of these cuts were being made because the enrollment was drastically dropping, I don't want to pay for teachers to sit around and teach less kids. And that's just common sense. So as long as the public understands that, I mean, the teachers are going because there's nobody to teach. Then
Well, there's a lot of reasons teachers are going. Declining enrollment is continually being more and more driving force. It's not the only force, right?
Right, but that is a significant piece. It's declining enrollment and declining revenue.
Yeah, we just don't have the revenue, so.
yeah, we should have more control over that.
But I just think we've got to be really clear about this.
It was the teacher.
So while we're trying to invest, and everybody keeps saying the same thing, and I agree wholeheartedly, you know, it does affect people, the space they operate in. Everybody likes to set up their workspace or their bedroom or their bathrooms the way they like them. We do that in our house, and we think it helps us perform well, or it's what we can afford, and then we want to do it in our spaces. We just have to realize that there is it's a big question about the community may not understand it. Douglas, you dying to say something, but you don't want to say it, or what?
No, well, yeah, I guess I will. And I hate to say it, but is there any way we can slice and dice this a bit, the project?
For what reason?
From the outset? just
For
to-
what reason?
Just to make it a little more handleable, a little smaller? I mean, do we really, I remain to be convinced that we really need another ball field. Maybe we do, and I just don't understand it. But at one point in time, when the architects were, presenting all of this and really excited about this whole athletic complex, I got the feeling in a way that we were being sold something I was not necessarily convinced we really needed.
I can tell you unequivocally,
No,
we need these facilities. If you want to perform athletic events
Yeah.
at the level that I think all the other school districts in the area and the state is, and we need to, I can tell you about the fields, they need
I
a
bet you
facelift,
can.
absolutely
Yeah.
positively.
Okay.
It's time, I don't think they've been done, and they have useful lives as well.
Okay.
And most of these we're putting lipstick on a pig.
Douglas, when that
Yeah.
gentleman came and did
Yeah.
that presentation about all the different things, he gave us
A 10-year plan.
and it was
It was-
the way over the top, here's absolutely
It
everything you
was.
could do, including bulldozing the trees out and adding an extra practice field and things like that.
Yes.
That's not what's in this.
I know.
No, right.
No,
This
I
is,
know
this
that.
is only the.
That was 8 mil on its own,
Oh,
wasn't it?
yeah, he
Yeah,
had,
it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
and that
So,
is, I must admit.
When I win the Powerball and come home with $300 million, I promise I will donate enough. to
After you
cover
buy
that.
the bills.
After
After you buy the bills.
I'll give you a cheap-
Hey, that's
the
really
deals
good
that are in the
thing.
plan, as I understand it, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, outside of the track, that ball field is because we have teams that have to go over to the fairgrounds, which have
Yes.
no facilities for our kids to go into if there's,
No.
if the lightning storm blows in, again, it's a safety issue that we're busting the kids over the field with nothing around it
Right.
because we don't have a space for them here on campus. And it's just a matter of shifting some things around, a little bit of landscaping. I say a little bit of landscaping, it's $500,000 for the landscaping, but it's a matter of reconfiguring the landscape so that we can host
You'll adjust
a
it.
team.
Fields cost a lot, man. We spent $4 million on the Yankee Stadium.
Land of $500.
2 acres, $4 million.
Exactly.
Douglas, I think,
It's a bargain at $500,000.
From a sports illiterate, modified baseball field, okay? Varsity softball field,
Boys,
they
girls,
have to be
different
different.
bases.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, could you explain to me why they have to be different?
They're completely
Side,
different
the dimensions are completely different. You have to have a mound for pitching for the boys, and it's a flat, well, not exactly flat field, but the mound's in a different location. the bases are spaced out differently.
They're just completely different.
It's hard to
Yeah,
make
it's
that clay flexible. Where they actually play the game, which is mostly in dirt, is not on grass. That game is played on dirt, and so consequently, unlike a grass field where you could just reline it, it's a little more complicated in an infield because you're putting big pieces of plastic that a projectile going about 150 miles an hour could ricochet off and crack a kid's head open. So that's the bottom line. It comes to safety. That's why you have to have multiple fields.
And timing, because they both have the same.
And then and scheduling issues.
Scheduling.
No, the mounds is where the ball flies off of.
So there's no alternative for schools that don't have the luxury of the space that we do, they can't?
Well, they do, but they makeshift, right? They play on grass. I mean, it's really, and it's a totally different game.
They're always separate fields.
They're always separate.
We do that now for practices.
You practice on grass.
They would practice any place they can.
Yeah.
And then we alternate home games, so that varsity's here one day and JV's away, and then they switch on.
See, we're fortunate in that we actually have the physical space.
Right.
Ithaca High School had to do what they did because they don't have the physical space. I remember sitting down with them and they said, "What do you think?" I said, "You need a big, good plastic field." And that's exactly what they did. It's what they needed to do. They're landlocked. That's all the land that the high school has is what you see along that road.
Between 13.
For a school that's 10 times the size of ours.
That's
So,
unfortunate.
yeah, I can attest to the fact, number one, fields cost a lot, because it's really about litigation, to be honest. They want to have somebody to blame if it fails, and so everybody protects themselves. It's like malpractice insurance and doctors, it's no different. But the fields need to be done, and the safety issue, I gotta tell you, of all the things, and my kid's a track, and my youngest is gonna be a track kid too, the stands are what scare me. I'm waiting for the paper, stands collapse, 15 dead. I'm telling you, it's what's gonna happen.
I know, I looked at it.
It's not.
Portland.
They will.
Yeah, what do you think the risk to the district is with that?
It's a lot more now that you mentioned it.
Yeah, well, I think it's not like everybody knows it.
Thanks a lot.
But what about you guys? Are you ready for this? I know this is how this got brought up.
Absolutely not. We have our plates full with many, many other things. We are not ready for this.
You're not ready for it.
Well, then we should
I mean,
vote
we
tonight
don't-
anyway.
But
We don't have to vote tonight.
We don't have to vote, we don't have to vote. We just have to keep the ball moving. There's no vote. We just have to instruct them. We don't have
But
to
I think
have
the
a vote.
conversation you just had is what needed to happen, because we could have just had a couple of things go really quickly through, and the public could say, when did this get talked about? I attended the Booster Club meetings, began at 6:30, they started talking about the complex and how they had raised $5,000 towards the complex, and I hadn't heard the track referred to as the complex, but that's what they call it. And they personally raised $5,000 towards it, so I would guess that group of people would be very much in favor of moving forward.
5 years ago, or 7 years ago, when that group was put together, their idea of a complex was literally AstroTurf
Oh.
Dome Stadium.
They didn't talk about that tonight.
$3.5 million.
Retractable dome. Not full dome, retractable dome.
So there's where the complex,
So the word is there, but maybe not the AstroTurf.
yes, no longer the
Yeah, this should not
AstroTurf.
be quite as complex as they think.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear, all kidding aside, you've got full plates. You don't want to do this.
Well, no, I just want to be honest that really the days are totally full with all the other work that we're doing, which you know about. And so, I mean, like for me to be all caught up with Mr. Babcock on all the issues of this, it takes time, because I don't think the board would be happy if we just said, hey, here's 10.8, have a good couple of years and come back and tell us when it's over.
So the question is then, if I want to make sure I hear you right. Right now, you're telling us, we'll do this, just with the wish of the board, something else ain't gonna get done.
Or may not get done as well as I wish it could.
Okay. To me, that's the issue. Because they're gonna run, I mean, we're gonna be a committee, him, and you're gonna run the day-to-day operations of this thing with Sylvescus and you, and, right? So it's a burden.
Today.
And you already got 2 jobs.
Well, yeah, but good to be busy.
Yeah.
So, I think we don't literally have to vote on anything. We just have to continue to direct them,
Yep.
keep going with this or not. And I think tonight we're saying, keep going. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
We just have to have a resolution together by the 15th of October.
To vote on. And then we can let the public decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really the public decides.
Ultimately, we can talk all we want if the public says, I mean, they don't care.
Exactly.
But we, let's be clear, it's no future tax impact.
Correct.
We already got this money from the taxpayer. It wasn't from the tooth fairy that the $3 million showed up. So we already took this money from the taxpayer. So it doesn't have any future tax impact.
Correct.
The people who moved away would like us to clarify that.
It will have a future tax impact if we don't do it in a timely manner now, where if we postpone it years and years, and the cost to do this keeps increasing, then, right?
There's only
That's
one
the-
argument for postponing in my book, and that's the argument for them to manage it. To me, it's the only viable argument to not move forward, is if they say it's gonna be too much and we can't get it done with everything else we gotta get done.
And I would only add, yeah, that's real, but that's manageable. We'll figure it out. I mean,
We're already-
it's other duties as assigned, that kind of a job, and that's fine. I think the other part, though, is that it will be our job to sell this to the public, because when we get to the cuts in the spring, and there's a budget before this public, that they lose some of their favorite teachers or whatever happens, then we'll have to sell that thing. Otherwise, we got a gorgeous track and be struggling in other parts of the district.
So-
I don't understand that, as Kim has said this 3 times tonight already, this money can't pass by that.
It cannot.
That's correct, and I
This is
think
not a
that's
hard
just,
sell.
it's just a
Well,
marketing.
It's an enormously
piece.
hard sell,
marketing
because nobody listens. How many people online?
It's a marketing piece.
How many people? 3 people. Nobody hears this conversation. This guy's gonna write the article, 5 more people will read it.
Oh, no.
I'm telling you.
More than that.
Well, I think one of the saving graces though is that, while certainly you're the face as the superintendent in that, I think one of the strengths of the district is that we all see this as a team, and I think it's incumbent upon everybody to sell this to the public
Absolutely.
and explain this to the
Yeah.
public. It doesn't fall on your 2 shoulders, so.
But what does fall on your 2 shoulders is the day-to-day operation with you of the capital project happening. When we went through the interview for this guy, that was a significant portion of the questions that we asked.
Yes.
So I'm much less worried about the sort of the public understanding it. I think there are political issues some people won't, and they'll be aggravated about it, and we'll take a bashing. But if the vote's in December, we're not gonna make those cuts until the spring, so they'll be like pissing at us
Else
for.
wanted this job.
Right.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Now you know why.
I'd like to know where we are on phase 3. The
Phase
curb
3, pretty much wrapped up for this summer, other than a couple of punch list items, just some painting issues, and I think we got 1 lock set and a door we're waiting had to be reordered because the frame was completely out of square, so we had to reorder a door for that. The cardio room is the last piece left in the high school, but that's on schedule. We're awaiting the new piece of HVAC equipment. We're looking at substantial completion of that end of November, so directly following the Thanksgiving holidays, that should be available to the high school for use. One other small piece is, if you remember, the Net Zero project.
Yes.
With all the turmoil in SED, that project sat on someone's desk for quite some time. We received verbal approval about 2 weeks ago, so we're looking to get that scheduled and work with those folks.
Not for nothing. The selling point that those guys stood right in front of us and said is, this gets expedited because it's under $100,000. Did I dream that statement, or did they say that?
What you don't realize is when they went in, they had 4 project managers through retirement and death. A death of one of the project managers. By the time our project hit someone's desk, there was 1 project manager left in the state education department for all the projects in the state.
So they can no longer say that. Now, there may be less red tape, but now there's only 1 guy cutting tape.
No.
Well, right now, I think they're up to 2.
2
They've
for the
got
whole
2
state.
2 for the
Oh
whole
my
state.
God, it's a glut.
Reviewing the project. Right now, they're about 20 weeks out on even the small projects. Well, we have verbal approval. I'm working with CNS to
So
try
what
to
do we
get
do with
some
that?
schedules together. Probably work evenings and weekends and a few holidays to get that.
This is energy management stuff?
Yeah, energy management system.
Really was a good thing.
Yeah.
It should have been done by now.
It still is. We'll get it done. It ought to be done till June 30th.
Does anybody else remember the things?
Oh,
yeah. Do you just decide not to get pissed off
No,
about
they
it?
can't.
We're saving our energy. Get used to the way these things work.
Okay, Douglas has a report you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I attended my first official BOCES meeting and do have a report from that. Opening day went very smoothly. No major problems. October 4th at 5:30 will be open house at the Smith School for anyone who might be interested in attending that. Ithaca is developing a flow chart for their policy on concussion management. This is probably something I should address the nurse's office, address to the nurse's office as well. With all the variables inherent in the treatment of concussions, apparently a flow chart which describes branches defined for each variable would appear to be the best approach to writing a policy, rather than trying to cover everything in a paragraph or something. So it remains to be seen what they come up with. But I think that there are a number of schools who are interested in looking at how that comes out once it's completed.
So that's the operational aspects of the law they passed.
Exactly.
And Douglas, I would speak to Matt Tave's credit, because he has been at the forefront of leading our district in that process. We've been meeting annually, and we have a very clear program plan.
Great, okay.
Every one of the kids in all of our sports is tested. They do a pre-test, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the software system, but there's a software package that every athlete is tested on, so that in the event of a head injury or that they can be tested. So we have a real good policy in place,
Right.
and Matt has been really a leader in that.
That's terrific. I guess this is just something I think might be interesting to take a look at.
Matt, I'm sure Matt would love to see whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the sort of thing that the flow charts are good for people that aren't Matt, right? For people who have to look at a kid who's wobbling and saying, okay, where on the flow chart is this kid gonna be? Because then it's gonna be IEPs, it's gonna be counseling things, it's gonna be performance. Do we need another trainer on staff? Who's gonna make that call and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that some people could benefit from a flow chart.
Indeed. Anyway, enough of that. BOCES and Auburn have both applied for and heard from SED on their APPRs. At this point, they've both been approved. The process has really been streamlined. They have, and sped up. They are working through subcontractors right now, so they have additional people on staff. And we're apparently very positive about both plans and most helpful in spelling out precisely what needed to be changed. I think there were only about 8 items that needed changing. So that went very, very nicely. Tony DeLuca has been working with other educators on developing the locally negotiated piece of the career and tech ed deal, a statewide assessment, program. They've come up with a bank of test questions which are currently being evaluated for reliability and validity, and will eventually be available for both summative and what's the other one? Master eval.
So this is APPR for tech teachers.
This is APPR for BOCES, basically, for the tech and career and tech program. Yeah, it was really nice that he was invited to be in the group that wrote up that battery test questions. And I think that's, also, just as an addition, once we get to this point, BOCES did develop a really nice APPR workbook for the implementation of APPR for their teachers. And I think each of the board members at some point are going to get a copy of one, so I will certainly bring that and let you guys, obviously it's with their rubric and all, but it's certainly something that we might at some point want to consider making up. Now, at some point, I would also like feedback from you guys as to how important this stuff is to you to hear, whether it's important or not. This may be more information than you need. This is the first time we have had a report from the BOCES.
In quite a number of years.
I wouldn't mind, Douglas, to be honest, partly what I'd like to see is that if you wrote it up and it went out with the agenda. so that you don't have to sit there and rattle it off, that we could actually digest it and maybe ask you questions.
I would like to rattle it off, or at least get it to the newspaper, because I think it's
Well,
important
good.
that the community know, I really do, that we're dealing with this as a board and aware of what's going on.
So there's, because it'd be nice to have it in advance. I guess I don't
No,
mind you
I would be
rattling it
happy.
off.
I mean, when I get a chance, this has just been, I mean, I met with them Wednesday night, and
Okay.
I've been in Albany since, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because I, you know, for me anyway, it's, okay, I gotta listen to it, do I have any questions? Okay, I won't hear about this for another month. It's
Sure.
just, if I get it like a Friday or a Sunday before a meeting, I'll look at it and say, okay, oh, that's really good to know that. We can still talk about it.
I'll listen to you talk any day, Douglas.
I'll listen to you, I'm happy to chat about it.
How are we doing on the superintendent search?
Oh, jeez, I forget that.
that's right.
The superintendent search. It was not as successful as one might wish, and we went out at sort of a difficult time, because there were a number of other BOCES looking for superintendents. Of course, there still are, but, you know, that period between June and August is really heavy duty. So we decided to close the search. Bill will continue, come on, Doug. Spec? No, that's not
Spec,
right. Yes, it is, okay. Senior moment. We'll continue to advise, to supervise the BOCES. And he's been very impressed with the job the team's doing of keeping things up and running.
Is he considered a candidate?
No, he's the superintendent.
No, he's the superintendent.
Oh, he's an interim.
I'm
He's an
sorry.
interim.
Yeah, well, he's
Yes,
a,
he is, and also the full-time superintendent at QU.
Cayuga. He's a wonderful
Unbelievable.
guy.
Oh,
And
okay.
many of us wish you were him. But anyway, so we will be reopening the search after the SUPS meetings and such, just because we all feel that perhaps networking is a slightly better way of getting decent candidates than just sending out paper and waiting for replies, so. The game will continue, we'll probably be interviewing again in January.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.